and this podcast series with one main intention: to help artists, promoters, record label owners, playlist curators, and others in the music industry share their message and views with the world. We hope that you will get inspired by their stories, experiences, and work, and that by spending time with them at home, you will also get to know them as people. Without further ado, let's welcome today's guest. JP Enfant is a DJ, producer, and resident of the world-leading club, The School, in Amsterdam. He's a known and respected figure of the current underground music scene, having shared decks with the likes of Marcel Detzman, Miss Kittin, Freddie K, Perel, Sandrien, and in events and venues such as Tomorrowland, Berghain, Digital, and ADE, to name a few. With a string of releases and a latest EP including a remix from Colin Benders, JP shows how he's built a life centered around music. In our chat, we talk about the importance of sticking to your guns in musical preferences, how to innovate, JP's routines and projects, and his journey to becoming resident of legendary clubs Trouw and now The School, both of them in Amsterdam. JP Enfant also reveals his most nerve-wracking DJ experience and a possible solution to the eternal battle between carbonara and amatriciana. You will discover the backstory if you stick around. His story, dedication, and words are an inspiration. As JP says himself, to focus straight on your goals and keep on trying until you reach them. Enjoy this conversation with JP Enfant. JP, thanks so much for being with us. It's a pleasure to have you.
It's the pleasure is all mine. Thank you. It's really nice to get the invite and to speak with you guys. So yeah, cool.
Nice. Okay, we're gonna start with a question that might feel very current and might bore you as well, which is how are you spending your days in lockdown?
Well, basically, I'm making a lot of music, as well as that I'm developing new plans. So I'm working on a plan for a new label, which I can't tell yet what it's going to be, because I'm still in a developing phase. But it seems to be like something that really reflects what I want to do musically, and that's something I wanted to do for ages. So I'm using the time now that I'm not touring to build up new things and see if I can work on future projects that whenever it starts again, that I have something to tell.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah, it gives you a bit more.
Yeah, a bit more power. Yeah, a bit more body. And I'm doing a lot of sports. To be honest, I try to work out at least 5 times a week, just to stay fresh and healthy. Also in the mind, because I think like this lockdown period and this crisis can be quite heavy on the mind.
Yeah,
I don't know how you experience that, but
in
the beginning I had some anxiety attacks.
Yes.
So
same for me. Like I still, for me, it was slightly different. For me at the start, I was like, oh no, this is great. I can do more music. I can work. There's no distraction. And then I think with time, I think it's because I'm an extrovert. I get energy from being around people. So I really crave that. I really crave being around people for doing things, dancing, and that is gone. And at some point I was like, wow, I started getting really serious, non-panic attacks, but like you start self-doubting everything you do. You think nothing makes sense anymore. It's very...
No, that's the hard part. And like, that's also something I'm really missing now, like from the touring aspect, that's not happening. Like the crowd energy you get and every weekend normally, and the feeling of a dance floor and the social behavior of people, and like that's something I'm looking forward to get back to that.
For sure, man. I feel that. And what sports are you into now?
Well, I'm running a lot. I was already running a lot before the thing happened, but now like I'm doing it almost every morning, so that's a good thing. Just to keep my stamina on in check, because otherwise I will get chubby very fast because of all the food you have, you know.
Yeah.
And twice a week I'm training with my sister. She's a personal trainer, and
Great.
she gives me training then.
Yeah, that sounds great. It's a very good way to keep healthy and sane as well mentally.
Yeah, it's the sane part is probably the most important thing there. I would say. Keeps my mind calm.
Yeah. Relaxed. You release a lot of energy. You start thinking in a different way. Works really well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, more positive and normally. Yeah. At least that's the effect.
It is, yes. So, and there was a question from one of our audience. It might be a friend of yours, Amira, who, and she's asking, do you have a specific music routine during the lockdown? So when it comes down to your production?
Well, I would say not really. I wish I had, though. That's something that I have been thinking of lately. Like yesterday, I was thinking exactly about that. Like maybe I should build in more like a routine that I pick certain days in the week where I just produce. On the other hand, you cannot really force creativity. It comes when it is there. So I think that having the ability whenever it's there to start making music is much more important than the actual routine. But it can also help to sometimes just sit down and start without especially having creativity or like inspiration, because then you're also like working on something, which is also like a good thing to do, I think.
Yeah, it gives you a bit of a push in
exactly. Pushes you into like thinking creatively.
Yeah. What do you normally use to make a track? Do you start with an instrument or whatever comes to mind?
It's like most of the times I start with the melody. I'm just fiddling around a bit with my synthesizers, and most of the time something comes out. And then I start shaping my kick drum. I love kick drums. So sometimes I can just spend hours on shaping one, and then I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, just start making something now, you know? That's normally how I start. And whenever I got that melody or like kind of a droney, sometimes it's also just a drone or like a certain atmosphere that's there, and from that you can start building and add different layers, I think. So that's basically how I start.
It's probably true that in techno, kick drum is 45% of the track.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Especially when you count it in time. Like 45% of the time is used for making the kick drum. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of makes sense, you know, like you want to spend time and you want to make it good. Is there so before you sit in the studio, is there anything you do, like, do you have a ritual? Do you have anything that helps you get into the right mindset?
Well, we discussed the sports before. That really helps. I meditate as well, just to get my mind at ease. It's really kind of, that's kind of what I do, but that's also part of my daily routine, actually. So I think that it's more that I kind of build my life around making music more. I think you could see it like that, and that everything that I do is basically also to get myself into a creative mood, or like into a certain direction, at least, to get the creative juices flowing.
Yeah. Is there anything that you have seen over the time that has worked really well in your case to get your mind into that creative state?
The most important thing is just to think about nothing, really. Just like what I've seen is that whenever I just sit down and start without having an idea beforehand, the best things come out because it's so natural, you know. And if you start to, if I start to think about, okay, it has to go this or this direction, then very soon I get stuck.
Got it. Yeah. It's almost like when you move away from your analytical mind, you go up into your creative mind. That's when the magic happens.
Yeah. It's like from the brain to the heart, basically. That's how I see it. Yeah.
I love that comparison. And there was something that I read in one of the interviews you did, I think with the school, where you were talking about waves. And I think the question was around the long sets. So when you do an extended set, how do you see it? How do you think about your set? And you were describing it as when you do a short set, it's almost like having a lot of like big waves rushing against the shore. And when you have a longer set, you have like waves that alternate, like fluctuate from being like very long and calm to being very, very hard and like hitting out the shore. Like, is that like a good description of how you see your sets and the music as well?
Yeah, definitely. Like the thing is, I basically grew up near the sea, so for me it's like a very natural thing to think about these kind of comparisons and metaphors. But basically I love to do long sets. I think there was an interview I did for my all-nighter, right? One of my all-nighters that I do annually at the school. So basically I see music as waves. Like everything in life is basically cyclical, like a wave, because if you have a wave and you fold it into each other, then you get a cycle, right? You can get a perfect circle. So it is kind of cyclical, and I think going down and then going up to a peak again, that's basically how you keep people interested in what you're doing on the dance floor, what you're trying to bring. And it can also help to bring surprises where people didn't think they would get into like a certain kind of sound or a certain kind of vibe. But if you have the time to build towards that moment, you can get them on the wave actually, and they start surfing. I think that's the best way to describe it. Like mentally surfing on the wave of the music. And that's what I find a very interesting concept. And basically, it's not something that that's not something that I found that I conceptualized before starting to play, but it's really something that came out from the experience of playing itself. So I think that's how it works for me.
And so it's almost like your mind at some point switches into this mode where you're like, you feel you're kind of shaping the waves with your music, and then you start surfing on the waves, so like going up and down.
And I think I also tell in that interview, and I really feel it like that you lose time at that point. You're just busy, like you're in that hyper focus of creating those airwaves basically, because that's what sound is. It's a wave in the air.
Exactly. It's very true. Are you familiar with the concept of flow or the flow state?
I think it's like that.
Exactly. So when you get to a point where you're not really thinking, you're just going with you're going with the flow, but you're essentially going to the state,
and it comes naturally.
Is there any, so before to get to that point in a set, is there a way, a technique that you use to concentrate or to connect with the crowd better so that you can get together to that state?
It's not necessarily something I do deliberately, I would say. It's more something that just happens, like very natural. I know that I have a lot of interaction, especially at the beginning of a set. I try to look into the crowd, to make eye contact with people that are dancing, just to get like a kind of a feel what is going on in the room. And you can adjust your sound to that, and then you can take people on the wave, as I described, like the surfing part. Yeah. So that's basically, and then naturally, I think, because it's kind of an aim that you have, like subconsciously, to get there. Naturally, you get there, and sometimes it doesn't work out. That also happens, and sometimes, but most of the times, basically, it does work out. And I think then, when things to click, get that experience together, that's something beautiful, I think.
It is, yes. Even when it doesn't work out, at least you tried to get there, and
exactly.
You got to something. Yeah. There was a question that I think comes also from another person in the audience, Reynoud. Maybe I mispronounce him. And so what was one of the most nerve-wracking DJ experiences? So when you had an experience that was like super intense and you were like, fuck.
Well, I think that was my first time Berghain.
Wow.
Basically what happened was that I had to do the opening, and I had to be there at like 11:30 because Berghain always opens at midnight. And so I left the hotel at 12 or 11:15, perfectly in time, went into a cab, and then what happened was that there was like a big, huge fucking demonstration on Warschauerstraße.
Oh, wow.
So, which is basically the way to go to Berghain, or at least that was what my taxi driver was telling me. So I was like, okay, fine. And he was like, yeah, we have to go around it. It's like, okay, will we be in time? And it's like, yeah, we will be in time. And then what happened was that basically he drove around whole Berlin, the whole like East Berlin part.
No, wow.
Just to fuck me over, because he was like, oh, this is a tourist.
No.
So at a certain point, we were close to Berghain, and he wanted to take a wrong road. And I was like, hey, dude, now you're going to listen to me. And it was already like 11:45 by that point.
Wow, man.
It's like, now you're going to listen to me. We go here now. I'm going to lead you the way, because otherwise I'll be too late. But it was like a super, like, imagine you have to play like one of the most anticipated gigs for you at that point in your musical career. It's like kind of heavy. So I arrived there, and at least a good friend of mine was waiting for me, who used to work at the Osgood office at that moment. So he picked me up, calmed me down. We went upstairs, did a shot with all the bar staff, and then I had to start. But that was very stressful. Yeah.
Wow, I can imagine. Yeah. It's almost like you're late. I don't know, for when you're sitting an exam, like the last exam at university
exactly,
or school.
Yeah.
You're like, if I fuck it up, what I gotta do?
Yeah. At least we managed to get in time, and they were very sweet. Like they immediately calmed me by saying like, "Hey, we're just gonna open the club whenever you are ready." So that was good. Yeah, in the end.
Wow. Yeah, it went really well. And do you remember, like, so when you started playing, like, were you? I guess you were tense. How did you feel when you started playing there? You were like, oh fuck, I'm late. I'm like, oh.
Well, I like when I do opening sets, I normally start with ambient, and I try to build it up, like especially when you do a longer, like 4-hour set or something. I try to build it up like from 80 beat per minute to slowly evolve it to 130 or 128. Depends a bit on how the night evolves. So what I did was I prepared that set very well. And I just started with playing ambient that was like really calming me down. So that was a good point.
Wow.
And after that, I basically used the energy rush to build the setup. So that was it. And in the end, it worked out. And I got to transform it to like a more positive experience.
Yeah. It's a great outcome.
Yeah, for sure.
In talking about your style, the evolution of you as an artist, as a DJ, I've listened to one of your sets recently. I think it was a dystopian set, Trouw, possibly
Yeah.
like 2012, 2013. And the music seemed, at least to me, seemed to be a bit more minimalistic, more like maybe someone would call it hypnotic techno. While now I think your latest sets are more like energetic, driving. Do you feel that way? Do you feel your music has evolved since, 7 years ago now?
I think basically like the set you're talking about is also an opening set. So basically that makes kind of a difference, of course. Well, now what I'm playing more and more like peak time and closings at the moment. So I think yes, it evolved, but I still have that hypnotic part in me. Definitely, that's not something that has been thrown over the fence or something like that. It's really like as well as the banging part, which I do now a bit more. I would say I could have done that back then for more peak time sets as well. And also like. Of course, I'm always looking for new, interesting sounds. So I think, yes, it evolved. But that doesn't mean that I don't appreciate the music from back then anymore, basically.
Yeah. And I think it's also normal, like you evolve with time. Like there are external influences, there is your internal growth that
happily, because otherwise what would it mean to be an artist,
Yeah, exactly. So do you feel how much of your inspiration comes from outside, from what's happening in the current world of music, and how much of that comes from you? It's almost like a natural thing.
Do you mean basically what the trends are, etc., right?
Yeah, perhaps, exactly. So do you look a lot at what's happening in the world to say, okay, I want to fish ideas from what is currently happening?
Or... So basically, I had kind of a struggle about this like 1-2 years ago because techno was becoming inherently more hard and also less techno-y in my way of describing techno. There were much more like hard house and trance influences, which I didn't really click with. Like the funny thing is I come from a trance background because I grew up in Breda, which is like the city here in the Netherlands where trance was basically brought to like Chesto was from there, Hardwell is from there, like a lot of big trance DJs from back in the days come from there. So that was like a big influence. But for me, that really didn't go well with the way it was played out by certain DJs and labeled as techno, because techno is inherently something completely different, and it's fine to like combine it, but at least don't call it techno. That was something I really had like something like, fuck, it goes against the whole ethos of what techno is for me, which is basically music from the future. Well, what happened was that everybody went backwards at a certain point, like playing tracks from the 90s, like these rave bangers that were basically some tracks are cool and some are really cheesy in my opinion, and not very musical at all. And I've been thinking, like, I saw that hype happening and I was like, fuck, what should I do with this? Because basically this is not my style, but I still want to stay relevant. And in the end, I decided not to go with it, because what would it have meant for me as an artist to do something that I wouldn't like to do, So I try to always stay with myself.
Yeah,
I think that's the lesson I learned from that it's really important to stay with the music you like. And yes, you can always kind of challenge yourself, And that's also important to do that, because otherwise, how would you evolve?
Yeah.
But stay true to yourself. I think that's the most important thing there. And then, you can get influenced as long as it fits you, I think. And that's how I see it, basically.
Got it. Yes. And do you think it's difficult sometimes because you have pressure from having to play a certain style because that's what's trending at the moment? So let me rephrase it. So if you want to play gigs, for instance, currently now the bangers is the trend, is what most promoters want because it's what most people are attracted to. How do you resist that pressure of having to do a bit of more of a banger than what you would like to do?
Well, how do I receive that pressure?
Or do you resist it? Like, how do you push it back and say, I like to do something that is a bit more experimental and ambient, maybe?
It's not necessarily that. I like to do banger sets, but in my own way. So I think that I won't go with like the cold, harsh, trancey sound there. I would go with the more like good bangers, like older Robert Hood records or like that kind of stuff. And then also like what I really like to do is to combine it with stuff that's more avant-gardistic, I would say, to challenge people a bit more. And sometimes that works out very well, sometimes it doesn't. But it's not necessarily that I feel it like a pressure to go harder or something. Sometimes it happens that a DJ before me is playing like 140 BPM, and I'm like, well, where the fuck is the groove here? Because I can find it.
It's usually kick. Yeah.
And what I found out is it's kind of a different style of dancing as well. Like it's hip, moving the hips versus fist pumping.
It's a good way to describe it.
And I'm more of moving the hips and fist pumping at the same time than just one thing or the other. So there still has to be like this sexiness and sensuality in the music for me to make it really work. Yeah.
Got it. Yes. And so very interesting what you said about I love music from the future, which is also what people can find on your Instagram bio.
Yeah.
So I think it's something that I think people like Jeff Mills, Rishi Otin had been big proponent of that. Like they were really like about let's create something that really doesn't exist. Let's push to create something that is different.
Yeah.
What could be a way that an artist is thinking the same way and they start creating something that is innovative?
Yeah, well, so basically how I see it is that like music, I think Ricardo Villalobos described that very well once, that music is always an inspiration of something that is already out there. It's really hard to create something from scratch that doesn't basically exist. There's always something that influences you. And probably the first music that was made was our voices or birds whistling, it's like always something out there. But I think that it's really important to, in order to make things evolve and keep things alive, to be striving for like creating something new and something tickling. It's something that tickling your senses in a way that hasn't been heard or done before. And that's how I see techno really, as something like, I think that's the essence of techno, that it's music from the future, basically.
Do you, when it comes
to does that answer your question? Because I don't know if it's clear enough.
It does. I have a follow-up question on that, which is like, for your own production, let's say you want to do something which is innovative. It hasn't been created before. Of course, you're going to draw on some inspiration, but do you try to relate more. Do you, when you need to find ideas, do they come from music, and they come from techno, or maybe they come from music and another style that then you reinterpret in your techno, or they perhaps come from another form of art or something else in the world?
Both, I would say. Like what I did for the project for digital, for instance, I'm really interested in how music works mathematically as well. Like what I did was like look into the Fibonacci sequence, which is like a perfect representation of the golden ratio, right?
Yeah.
So what I tried to do, like I knew that some composers from the classical era used it to like arrange their music in ways that we don't really do in pop or dance. For instance, we use the 4/4/4 method, right? Like the 8 bars change kind of thing.
Yeah. Because it's
and
functional.
what I tried, it's very functional.
Because you can mix tracks easy. I guess that's one of the reasons.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons, but it's also because that's also how it was structured in blues and jazz, etc. It was not something that really had to do with DJing in the first place. It's just a structure that really helps us to make it work.
So maybe the DJing, the way we DJ is based on that, because the music
is based on
the
structure of the music. Yeah,
wow,
exactly.
It's very interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sorry, go on.
So what I tried to do was try to arrange it in a different way, using the numbers from the Fibonacci sequence to actually make revolts or changes in the music. And like I started experimenting with that like 1-2 years ago. And what I found was that for me, at least, the music started sounding differently, equally as good, and maybe a bit more natural, because I did some testing. Like I showed the music to people that had no idea what I was doing, and watched their reaction, and they said like, "Oh, this sounds perfect." It was like, "Yeah," wow. But they couldn't find the actual crux of what was going on there. So that's, I think, a good thing. Basically, yeah, I get inspiration from other kinds of music, to answer your question. But also from art. Like what I find very interesting is movies. I used to run a movie theater here in Amsterdam together with some friends, and that also draws a lot of inspiration. Like I love like dystopian sci-fi shit. That's really something I adore. So
nice.
Yeah.
What is that? What is a movie that particularly resonates with you?
Well, the most obvious, of course, would be Blade Runner, which is like, it's a cliche to say that as a techno DJ, I would say, but it's fucking sick movie. Another one is a bit less known. It's a movie called Dark City.
Dark City. Yeah.
Yeah. A very interesting one. It came out around the same time as The Matrix. So The Matrix basically snowed under this movie, which is a pity because it's just like a super interesting concept. What they describe in that movie, which is about like two layered Earth, like people living underneath the Earth, and the people underneath the Earth have like a collective consciousness, and they want to have like the individual consciousness of the people that are living on Earth. So basically, you have to watch the movie. It's interesting. Yeah,
I'm writing it down. I'm gonna watch it for sure. Yeah. It's very interesting. The old sci-fi thing it does relate a lot to techno, but also in a way, a lot of these movies provide a
because it's music from the future, right? So
yeah, exactly.
It's very sci-fi.
Very sci-fi, yeah. But also, I think it was The Matrix, when there's a scene where there is kind of a sort of trancy raving music when they're doing I think they get into a cave, if I remember correctly. when they are into this kind of
when they're going under what's the city called, where the only free city in the world, right?
They're
going there.
And which is like underground somewhere, and they get into this cave, and they're playing this kind of massive trance music, and everybody's going crazy. I think is the Matrix.
But it's not the first movie, right? It's the second or anyways.
Maybe, anyways, we're gonna get
we're getting into details.
Talking about your release on digital, so the lead track is GTPM. Is there a meaning behind that?
Yeah, there was a meaning, but I forgot what it stands for.
Wow.
So I'm still trying to get my head around it. Like, what was it again that I meant with this, like, letters? And there was, like, it's obviously connected to words. But I also kind of find it interesting to keep people kind of in the dark about what it is, including myself, because that makes them creative to think about what it could mean, and make words on their own. So that's how I see it, basically. I think that is an interesting concept, but I wanted to keep the title like that because of that.
So you lost, let's say you forgot the initial meaning when you were about to release the track. You said, okay, let's just leave it as it is.
Yeah, I made the track like I think now around a year ago, maybe a bit less than a year ago. And it just sat there on my hard disk for a while before I sent it over. And that's basically what happened.
And what's also interesting is that you got a remix by Colin Benders, which is not a common thing. He doesn't do much releases.
No, he doesn't do much. No. Like, basically, I think me and Colin, we met the first time actually at Digital when I was playing for them last year.
Yeah.
Obviously, because this year it didn't happen because of the crisis. And we were playing on the same night, I think, in Shelter. He was doing a live show with his modulars, which is fucking awesome. And I think he also did like this special project, like art project for Digital, where Digital asks somebody to build like a art installation. This time was with light. And then they ask an artist to compose music for that.
Wow.
And that was very interesting. And we started talking about that in the green room and of Shelter. And we started also talking about his other projects, because he's kind of a very famous musician here in the Netherlands.
For the orchestra.
Yeah, exactly. For Kyteman Orchestra. And before that, he played in a reggae band.
Wow.
Which was also very successful. So he has a couple of things that he has done. And after that we started talking about like possible remixes, etc. And by then I didn't even know yet if I was going to release anything on Digital. We were talking, but sometimes things can happen, and sometimes things
someone must have heard the conversation and be like, we're gonna ask JP and call him.
Yeah. Could be. Yeah, but I mean, I was already in talks with Tim, the guy that runs the Digital label, for a long time, as we know each other. He used to work and DJ at Trouw as well, so we know each other for quite a while. And basically, we started also talking about remixes then, indeed. And I asked him very bluntly, like, hey, would you be interested to do that one day? And it's like, yeah, if you come up with something interesting, I would definitely do it. So from there,
no pressure.
Basically. No.
No pressure. You're like, fuck.
And the interesting thing about it is that we were thinking about finding a remixer for the EP, and we were digging into like all the big names like Len Faki, Marcel Detman, Ben Klok, etc. And that didn't really, like, didn't really feel like it was something that would really contribute to the EP in an artistic way I was looking for, and they were looking for at the label. I mean, they don't get me wrong, they do great music, because otherwise we wouldn't have thought of them. But for this one, it needed something different. So
it worked out really well.
Then then I had a phone call with my agent Joy, and she was actually mentioning this conversation to me, like, "Hey, why don't you ask Colin, because you already talked about it with him?" And that was actually how it came to happen.
Yeah. Did you, before asking Colin, so you were thinking about him, and it felt like, okay, it was a good choice. Did you feel like, oh shit, maybe he's gonna say no? Did you feel a bit of fear that he would reject the proposal?
Of course. Because he's like, I have tremendous respect for him. Like, he has a resume that like that nobody can beat, basically. So of course, But it was like an honor when he said yes. And what he basically did with the tracks, or with the track, is that he rebuilt it. Like, he re-sequenced it on his sequencers and made a new composition out of it, basically, on his modulars. So that's super cool.
Yeah. I mean, he's a very interesting artist, like poly-instrumentalist, clearly very successful, unique music.
Yeah.
And it's great to see that, like, he's doing more and more stuff for the dance floor as well, because I think people are really excited.
Yeah. And he's really good at that too. Like, a very devoted. I don't know if you know about his new, like, what's it called? Discord channel, where he does like all these live streams on his modular. It's you should check it out. It's very interesting.
Wow, I'm gonna check it for sure. Yeah. Nice. And talking about like going back to your production. Actually, let's talk about your roots. So you were born in Amsterdam, right, or in the Netherlands?
No, in the Netherlands. Near Amsterdam, actually.
When did you move to Amsterdam?
I only moved to Amsterdam when I attended university for my studies. But before that, I was living in the south of the Netherlands, in Breda, with my parents.
Yeah. So you moved to Amsterdam to study political science. Was that a uni? Yeah. And so from that experience, which of course is very different from music, is there anything you feel you have learned from studying political science that is a toolkit, it became part of your toolkit and is something valuable for you for life?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that question, obviously. There's a lot of lessons you learn from that study, because it's so broad and you get so much insight in history. But one of the most essential things is that what I learned is that what is fair and what is not fair is a very contested concept. So basically, what is fair for someone, what is fair for you, doesn't necessarily mean it would be fair for me too. And that's basically what a lot of things in life are about, I think, and a lot of struggles in life are about. And as soon as you get that kind of concept, it gives you a lot of peace of mind, I would say. That you can do things in your own way, and
for sure,
not looking too much at what others do, because it might not seem fair to you that somebody has more success than you, but I mean, what does it mean in the end? You can create your own success, I think, till a certain degree, because you also have circumstances, of course. But that's something that made me realize, like, okay, stop whining, start working, and go for it.
It's very true. Like, everything is relative, and I think comparison a lot of times fuck us up, right?
Definitely.
So talking about your path, and do you define yourself successful? Are you content with what you are?
Well, I'm getting more at peace with myself, I would say. I know I'm not there yet. I still have a long way to go. The things I accomplished I think I'm proud about that, but it's not necessarily that I think that I should stop working now, because that's like
it would be a waste.
No, it would be a waste. Plus that I think that there's so much more out there to learn and to see and to experience that I'm not done, and not at all done. I think I'm just at the beginning, basically. And in that way, I always try to stay humble. And I think that's also really important to do that, because otherwise you can drive yourself to the next step,
Yeah, otherwise, and it seems that like you do that because you really enjoy music. So in a way, that is already
absolutely.
The big successes that you are able to do, the thing you love, like
exactly. Yeah, and that's one thing. Yeah, that I can do something that I love to do and do it professionally as well. That's beautiful. Yeah,
it is. And so before you got into DJ when you were younger, I guess was there a specific moment or event in your life that make you start think, I want to be a DJ?
Yeah, well, basically, I wanted to be a drummer when I was 5 years old. But my parents didn't want to give me like a drum set because they thought it would be way too noisy for the neighbors. So what I did was start to fool around with CD players and speakers around when I was 11, and started with like a little company with my friends to do like drive-in discos at people's places. And that's where it's coming from, basically. Wow. That's where it grew. And like, I remember the one thing I remember when I was like, okay, now I want to buy turntables, was when I was 14 years old and I saw Chesto playing in my hometown. It was like a free concert he did like on the big square, like the center square in my hometown. It was like 15,000 people, crazy stuff. And I was intrigued by the fact that he was playing records, but that I couldn't really distinguish when he was mixing in a new record. And that I found a very interesting concept, because it was also fitting well with the beat synchronization, that I tried to figure out, hey, how the fuck does he do that? I want that too. And that was basically a moment for me to realize, okay, I have to start doing this. And so I bought my turntables when I was 14 years old.
Wow. Yeah. It's amazing. Like, even just thinking that and I guess he doesn't know, he would never know that in a way he influenced you, inspired your way, right? So that concert... Yeah, exactly.
Maybe not. Maybe I get to speak to him in the future.
And but, you can be, hey man, you know that time you were playing in that square. Yeah. I was there, and I started DJing.
I played Tomorrowland like 2 years ago, and I was a bit starstruck when he walked by in the backstage, like, whoa. But I still regret until today that I didn't say anything. But yeah, that's like it's kind of weird for a techno DJ to have somebody like him as one of my inspirers to start DJing. But it's really something that is from my youth. So yeah,
of course,
it makes sense if you know the story.
Yeah, it makes sense. And again, like, I mean, it's probably what you liked like 15 years ago is certainly different than what you like now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's also a thing. Yeah. I still do like trends though.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a shame. Sometimes I feel the techno world is a bit closed to certain other genres.
So definitely. Yeah. Absolutely. And that's something that I really experienced quite a lot in Berlin when I was living there, that people were not really open to different things than what was like set into stone. Right. Which is like a very small part of what could be done in electronic music in general, but in electronic music, but in music like in general. there's so much interesting stuff out there. And how interesting would it be to combine some of this stuff and make something new, or create something that hasn't been done before, or maybe has been done before, but do it in your own. Yeah.
It's very interesting. So Jeff Mills is now opening another side of the label where he's going to release more jet stuff, not necessarily combined with techno, but again, like that he's always been quite open to do other stuff, like with the work he's done with the orchestras, with the London orchestra.
And the thing he did with Tony Allen is also quite remarkable. Yeah.
And it's like sometimes I see the invisible glass ceiling that we have as techno producers, which is like there's almost like a boundary where we cannot go past, because we might think that someone is going to get pissed. Someone's going to it's not techno.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Like, I mean, if you like, I think it's also a matter of doing it in a smart way to convince people that something else could be interesting for them.
Right.
And that reminds me of what Devious One once said, like, it's not what the people want, it's what the people need. And I think that is not only something that goes for the dance floor, but also something that goes for music itself.
Yeah. In a way, it's almost like it's part of building the communication with the dance floor, connecting with the dance floor, with people. Like you know what people need, like you give them what people tend to like more, and then you give it a twist that opens up new perspectives.
Yes, exactly. That's it.
Yeah. And so talk about your path. So you've been a resident at Trouw, you've been a resident now you are a resident of the school. How influential have these experiences been in your development as an artist and in your career?
I think like residencies are quite essential for my development as an artist, because you get a floor to experiment, and it's kind of a safe space, or like your house, like a secure base, basically, where you can do where you can rise, but you can also fall. You know, it's like a way to develop yourself, to experiment, to see what works, what doesn't work, and to get the trust from the club. Now, first Trouw and now the School, to be able to do that. That's something beautiful, and it's also very reassuring, of course. So it's also kind of a motivation to go on with that and to really appreciate what you have there. I think. It basically, I see it as kind of an incubation room, but also a laboratory.
Right.
So, like, residencies at clubs are there to like kind of develop new ideas, but also develop talent. I think that's a super important part of like the clubs, especially here in Amsterdam. I think they do that quite well. They're always looking for new people that could fit their vibe. If I compare to other cities where people are more going for the usual suspects, in a way.
Yeah, I guess in Amsterdam there is lots of clubs, and there's a lot of people who go and dance. So clubs or club nights tend to be, on average, they have bigger capacity than a city like London or Berlin. Perhaps clubs are bigger, and there is more.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily sure about that, because I think Shelter is like 800 to 1,000 people capacity.
Similar to Village Underground here in London.
Yeah, and Village or Fabric, or Fabric is much bigger, of course, because they have 3 rooms.
3 rooms. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But
maybe it's my impression. My impression is probably biased because of I come to Amsterdam predominantly for AD, where all the clubs are. I go to bigger clubs.
Yeah. Okay, but that's more like one-off locations than the parties of, for instance, Awakenings or are digital. That's not like places that are running during the whole year. It's like only ADE sometimes even, and some of them are also open with Christmas or other festivities like holidays or something like that.
Yeah, other festivals. Yeah. How did they? So Trouw came before. So Trouw is a club, for people who don't know, who is now shut, and apparently used to be like one of the best clubs ever. People really are really happy about that. Everybody talks about it as if it was something incredible. And then the school, which I think was opened by the same people, but some of the same people, right?
Yeah. So basically, what they do, like before Trouw was Club 11, which was on the 11th floor of like an old skyscraper. They basically, all the clubs they build are temporary and run for like 3 to 5 years. And then the next club will be given to the new generation, basically, that has been educated in the club before. So it has like this kind of generational like thing, and that's very interesting about it. Yeah, it's a very interesting project.
Wow, I didn't know at all this thing. Like, so what happened to Club 11?
So Club 11 shut down. They demolished the building. It was near Central Station in Amsterdam, and then like a couple of months later only they opened Trouw.
Yeah. And then they left Trouw in 2015 or
2014, I think. Yeah, 2014.
And then
the beginning,
school,
like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beginning of 2014, and then the school opened roughly in 2016. So that was
2015.
2015. Okay, so kind of
I think if I have my dates right, because I'm not completely sure now. Yeah. This is the 5th year of the school.
So yeah, roughly 2015 then.
Yeah. 2016. Yeah. Anyways, numbers.
So essentially we're like 1 year apart. So Trouw, what happened to the club? Is being demolished or is that?
No, it's partly demolished. I remember I was doing studio sessions with Tom Trago, who has his studio across the street of the old Trouw building in the Volkshotel. And we walked out and they were basically, only the fundaments were still there, but the whole building was demolished. And we looked at each other like, what the fuck did they do to our club? But they made like a hotel out of it or something like that. And there's also a gym inside and a pool now. And that's it. It's like a very gentrified kind of thing to do, I would say.
Yeah.
Like you build a club, area gets better, and then you demolish it and build something for like a real estate developer, that kind of thing.
And maybe they push it as, in this room, it used to be DJ booth of Trouw. Like,
I think the old signing is still there in the basement, which is interesting.
Wow,
I've been there once because my sister is working for the gym that has several places in Amsterdam and also in that building. So
it's pretty crazy. Yeah. And now the school is, which in my view is, I think is the best club I've ever been to because of the vibe. Like, what do you think is special about that place?
What I think is special is that it has a very strong identity, and they built that identity from the beginning on. It's a very open space. Like people are very open to different kinds of people that are not necessarily so accepted in society itself. I think that's one thing. And on the other hand, you have a very strong musical identity that's connected to the place, which basically enables the club, to build their own homegrown heroes because they have such a strong musical ethos. And that's something that I find very interesting. Which also comes with that people are very open to new kinds of experimentations in music. And that's why it's such an interesting club. Like, I can play stuff there that I wouldn't dare to play anywhere else.
What is a guilty pleasure of yours in terms of a track that you wouldn't normally play?
Yeah, that's something I found a peculiar one. I came up with something that is a track, an old bonsai track actually. It's called Fire and Ice. The track is called Free, and it's like this 98 track, like very trancy, kind of badly produced.
Yeah,
but the music comes out there just like I'm listening to it now when I'm running actually, and it gives me goosebumps every time. So I'm like, fuck, I still want to play this once, but I don't. I'm still trying to find a moment to play it. Yeah, so it's a very like a typical cheesy trancy like synth line in it. It's still really cool.
It's almost like one of these secret weapons that you want to keep for yourself for a very special moments, and then you're gonna one day you're gonna be like, okay.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's one of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
it's interesting. And so talking about secret weapon of JP, anything that comes to mind when if I ask you like, what is a secret weapon? It can be anything even outside of music.
Yeah, I think it would be like music wise, I have a lot of like older tracks that are not very known that I consider secret weapons. One of them, and that might sound weird for techno DJ, is a track by the Crusaders, Street Life. I love that track, and it always works on a dance floor. And staying humble, staying sane is really important as well. Never take
that is
things
a
for granted. It's a secret weapon. It's really a secret weapon. Yeah.
It is. I think it leads to appreciation more. You appreciate more what you have, and
exactly.
you're more happy.
Yeah.
And then we have a little tradition at HoS Sound, which is you might expect this now, but which is we ask every guest to tell us a question that we should ask our next guest. Do you have anything?
So I was thinking about the following. I would like to know what the biggest inspiration is of somebody when he like who or what is the biggest inspiration of somebody when he is or she is making music, because I think it's about the next guest about music. I don't know yet. But in general, it can also work for companies or something like that. Like, what is somebody's biggest inspiration, or who?
Yes, for sure, exactly. It can be. I think the next guest is going to be an artist, but let's see.
Okay.
I'm
curious.
I'm not sure because we are scheduling things week by week, so people book themselves. So we might be. Let's see. And as you might expect, there is a question for you. Which is carbonara or amatriciana?
Amatriciana. Ali would kill me if I would say carbonara now. So I would say amatriciana.
Amatriciana, okay.
Yeah. Although bucatini is really hard to find here in Amsterdam, so it's not an easy task to make that pasta.
That's why you need Ale to.
Yeah, exactly.
But by the way, no. So
and his mom sending meat over.
Yeah, exactly. Guanciale.
Yeah, the guanciale. Yeah.
Alessandro from HoS Sound is an amazing cook. And by the way, this was not really a question, but it was a question from Alessandro for you. So I had to ask it.
Send him my sincere regards about this question. I love it. Yeah, there's a little the background behind this, right? Like every year during ADE, we do this dinner. Normally at the start of ADE, like on the Wednesday or Thursday, we have dinner together, and Alice's mother always sends a box with meats from Italy over to my place, and then we have dinner together, and he cooks the amatriciana, which is fucking amazing. But you probably know.
Yes, I've been lucky enough to be living next to Alessandro for like 15 minutes walk. So yes,
that's perfect.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
But I think I knew about the tradition. I think So, but great that you guys keep it in your mind. You're happy about that. And so, but the real questions from our previous guest, and it was a duo, so you're gonna get two.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Bring it.
Nice. So, what is something you never told your partner?
Oh, Jesus. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I have no idea. Like, I'm an open book. No. There are things, but they are way too heavy to tell them now on record.
On Spotify. Imagine they're gonna find out on Spotify.
Yeah.
One day, 3 years from now, we're gonna be like, oh, shit.
The beautiful thing is I don't really have a partner at the moment. So
Okay. So I'll give you another 3 minutes to think about it if anything comes to mind, and I'll tell you the other question.
Okay.
It's even more awkward to a certain degree, which is like, what is the last time you had sex?
Monday?
Monday?
No.
Oh, wow.
No, later.
Wow.
I think it was.
Okay.
Why?
That's the beauty of not being in lockdown. London it's a bit harder in London.
Yeah, okay. I'm sort of seeing a girl, so I mean that's makes sense. Yeah,
makes sense. You're lucky. Yeah, it's a good thing. And okay, the very last question is: what would be a one piece of advice that you would give to a hypothetical son or daughter of yours? Something you would leave them as like a skill or advice for life.
Oh yeah, I'm falling into repetition there, but like take nothing for granted is I think something really important to live by. What else? Keep going. Like it's super important to not give up on something. Like I think repetition is key in a way that you have to keep. If something doesn't work out, keep trying, keep pushing, and at a certain point it clicks. And that's something I believe in quite strongly.
Yeah, keep pushing.
And sometimes you also have to take your distance from that. Yeah, but do it smartly, but keep pushing.
It's interesting. It's also like I think you mentioned before that you listened to the interview with Jason from Submit Hub, and
he said the same.
Not in the same context, not as one piece of advice, but he was telling me in the context of like starting a company. He was saying it's a bit like sometimes it's a bit like throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping that one of them will stick.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. But this is different. I mean, that can be also like something that you're trying many different things. But this is more like also if you have a goal in mind, just go straight to the goal, like and keep on trying. It's like people can get sick of you basically, but in the end they're gonna appreciate the fact that you're so passionate about something most of the times, I think.
Yeah, and eventually you will get to beautiful places. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
I very much agree. And on that really good note, I would like to thank you for having this time with me and with us. It's been a great.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It was really nice to speak to you. Yeah,
likewise. Any latest projects that you would like people to check out?
Yeah, at least my last release. There's a lot coming actually in the rest of the year. I'm working on a new label, so keep an eye on that. Also, I'm working on something that is related to music and food, which is quite interesting, I think.
Wow.
I cannot tell a lot about it yet because we're still developing. We're quite far, but it's nice. So lots of interesting stuff going on.
Yeah.
Keep an eye out.
You seem very excited about what's coming, and let us know when you have the food and music for sure. But when you have any release upcoming, we're happy to share it with our audience. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people interested.
Thank you. That's sweet.
Yeah,
I will definitely do that. For
sure. Pleasure, man. Thanks so much for being with us. It's been a great pleasure.
It's been a pleasure too for me. The pleasure was all mine. The real gentleman in England say, right?
Yes. Thank you. And I sincerely hope we're gonna meet again perhaps in Amsterdam at the school. And
I hope so too. I hope they're gonna lift all the restrictions soon, and that we can at least give each other a hug soon.
Yes, man. Yes, man. It's been a pleasure. Right. Thank you. Okay, guys, this is Joseph, and this is the outro. If you really like the content, I wanted to ask you, please consider liking us on Instagram or leaving a review on the podcast. Whether you're using that on Apple is very useful for us, and your comment makes all of our work worth it. Also, if you have any guests that you really would like us to chat with, let us know. We take any suggestion or any feedback, and we use it to improve and direct what we're going to do next. If you're a producer and you're interested in masterclasses with artists such as Scalameria, VSK, Romek, Lag, and many more, you can now check our website homosound.co.uk. We have plenty of classes and more are coming as well. So brace yourself, you're going to get a lot of content. And one last thing, shout out for Vlad for editing this podcast and Declan for creating the content that you all see on social media. Plus, of course, big thanks to Juliana, Flaminia, Alessandro and Rick from TapeFeed for all the rest of the work at Homo Sound. Thank you so much for listening. See you next time at Homo Sound.